The most terrible thing any of us had ever experienced was when we kissed. When all of the floating candles began to burn through the ropes that held them to the ceiling and simply began to fall around the Great Hall. It was one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen on set. The Harry Potter novels and movies have captivated fans for over 20 years, leading to countless rewatches, discussions, and hypotheses. Devotees have studied every page and frame, certain they have discovered all the nuances and secret meanings. Some truths, however, remained hidden, subtleties and revelations that were only made public through directorial commentary, unscripted cast interviews, or even J.K. Rowling's own explanations. These disclosures were the underappreciated masterworks, behind-the-scenes tales, and imaginative choices that changed the perception of the wizarding world, not the clear Easter eggs or narrative twists that fans proudly identified. Join us now as we walk you through some of the cast members' revelations that, despite the passage of time, most fans were still unable to understand, demonstrating that the magic is still surprising. The child who lived took over the globe in Harry Potter mania. In June 1997, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was just another children's fantasy book when it first hit UK bookshop shelves. Only 500 hardback copies were printed in the first run, and many of them were sent directly to libraries. The Potter Collector Library's English Harry Potter volumes are all stored in an unidentified location. But in a few months, word of this little book about an orphan child who found out he was a wizard started to circulate, causing a ripple that soon became a huge wave. What started out as a children's book quickly evolved into a cultural phenomenon unheard of in contemporary publishing. Harry Potter's ascent was not an overnight sensation. Rather, it was a phenomenon that gradually gained recognition and attracted readers of various ages and backgrounds. The series had evolved into more than just a book collection by the year 2000. It was a movement, an identity, and the first memorable reading experience for a lot of kids. It created such a strong and pervasive enthusiasm that it would influence a generation and change the face of popular culture. A masterpiece in its own right, Harry Potter accomplished something that many others had not considered. As a result, children's publishing during the time hardly ever made news abroad. Goosebumps and other popular shows had undoubtedly attracted large audiences, but they were sometimes written off as mere amusement rather than cultural icons. With Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings regarded as a masterpiece, but mostly restricted to literary and genre circles, fantasy in particular was viewed as a niche. Given that J.K. Rowling's story had been turned down by several publishers before being accepted by Bloomsbury, it appeared modest in the middle of all of this. Something about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was unique from the start. Teachers saw that it was being devoured by reluctant readers. Waiting lists grew larger and longer, according to librarians. Parents who were hoping to amuse their kids by reading aloud to them were engrossed in Harry, Hermione, and Ron's escapades. The accessibility of the book was its secret. Set against the backdrop of a mythical universe that was intricate but manageable, it combined the suspense of a mystery novel with the whimsical charm of a fairy tale. For kids, the prospect of getting a letter from Hogwarts was too good to refuse. Additionally, compared to other children's books, it was far more interesting for adults due to its brilliant planning and comedy. Families were soon reading more than just Harry Potter. They were sharing it across dinner tables, living it, and talking about it. By Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second book, there was no denying the buzz. Sales skyrocketed. Translations into several more languages started. J.K. also received a number of honors. The magic of the first book is slightly darkened in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets to keep you on the edge of your seat. The series' reputation as a publishing success and a potential cultural phenomenon was solidified with the third book, Prisoner of Azkaban. For Halloween, kids started dressed up as wizards and holding stick-made wands. Reading groups centered around the novels were developed by the schools, and friendships were forged over mutual conjecture about the plot's potential outcomes. Fan sites and early message boards containing hypotheses, fan art, and predictions appeared at the beginning of the internet era. However, The publication of Goblet of Fire in 2000 marked the real turning point. By this time, Harry Potter was not only well-liked but also ruling the world. In the United States alone, the book's first printing of more than 5 million copies was extraordinary. More than 1 million copies of the new book were ordered in advance for its U.S. publication just this week. Publishers arranged for international release dates to ensure equity, allowing youngsters in Tokyo, Sydney, New York, and London to read the book simultaneously. The craze was here to stay. Possibly the most obvious indication of how intense Harry Potter mania was the midnight book releases. Around the world, bookstores held lavish parties where fans, sometimes dressed in full costume, lined up hours in advance to be among the first to get their hands on the latest edition. It felt less like a book release and more like a rock performance. Parents donned wizard hats, kids brandished wands, and local communities temporarily converted their neighborhood bookshops into miniature Hogwarts. Not only young people were enamored with Potter mania, grandparents, instructors, and even parents joined the queue. While several acknowledged slipping chapters ahead while the kids were asleep, others read the books with their kids. It is impossible for the well-known Harry Potter to enter a bookstore without being featured on the main page. In a society where reading was frequently viewed as a solitary pastime, Harry Potter transformed book launches into communal cultural events. Families might enjoy the novels together because of their appeal to a wide range of age groups. Harry, Hermione, and Ron became the uniting points for parents who had grown up on Tolkien or Roald Dahl. Suddenly, literary fiction-focused book groups were turning their sessions to Harry Potter. Editorials examining the symbolism of the series were written in newspapers. Scholars also discussed its intellectual and moral foundations. Whether or not you read the books at the time, you were familiar with Quidditch, could identify Harry's lightning bolt scar, and knew the names of the Hogwarts houses. Unquestionably, the book was a success, and it was time to offer the characters with faces that are identifiable outside of a page's description. Hogwarts magic comes to life on screen. The Globe went into overdrive when Warner Brothers acquired the picture rights to the novel. The news of a movie adaptation was both exciting and worrisome for a lot of fans. On the one hand, it promised to make Hogwarts enchantment come to life in a way they could only have dreamed about while reading. However, the stakes were rather high. Everyone was anxiously unsure if Hollywood could live up to the intensely personal visions of Harry, Hermione, and Ron that millions of kids and adults already had in their minds. The casting procedure was one of the most scrutinized parts of the movie adaptation. Who would represent Harry Potter as its face? What youngster could bear the burden of a persona who, before even stepping onto the screen, had already achieved cultural fame? It was a lengthy and exhausting search, in an effort to locate players who could not only look the part but also capture the essence of J.K.'s characters. Casting directors searched schools all throughout the United Kingdom. Thousands of kids tried out, but none appeared to fit the lightning-scarred hero until director Chris Columbus noticed a young Daniel Radcliffe. Massive media attention was generated by Daniel's casting. He was closely examined by the British media. Parents questioned whether a child so young could bear the pressure, while fans argued whether he looked like Harry enough. However, many doubters were silenced when his sincere face and round glasses showed up in promotional pictures. He became their Harry, the real-life version of a fictional figure that millions of kids had adored. Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger's casting was equally dramatic. Fans were soon won over by Emma Watson's eloquent charm and Rupert Grint's innate sense of humor. The three of them developed a chemistry that gave the movies heart and carried them. Other significant performances, such as Alan Rickman's iconic portrayal of Cy Snape and Richard Harris's astute Dumbledore, enhanced the adaptation's appeal beyond all expectations. The cast was iconic in addition to being strong. The Harry Potter fever exploded in 2001 with Warner Brothers' release of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Youngsters who had grown up hearing J.K. Rowling's words suddenly witnessed their transformation into magnificent images. The enchanted feast in the Great Hall, the moving staircases, and the towering turrets of Hogwarts all came to life. All of a sudden, the wizarding realm was more than just a fantasy. You were able to see, hear, and trust in it. The premiere of the movie was more than just a huge success. It was regarded as a worldwide holiday. Massive audiences attended red carpet events in New York and London, and advance ticket sales set records. Families, frequently clad in robes and brandishing wands, were now waiting in line for movie tickets, just as they had been for books at midnight. The movie made around $1 billion globally, making it a box office phenomenon. More significantly, it greatly broadened the fan base beyond just readers. After viewing the movie, kids who hadn't even picked up the books or weren't big readers at all were soon caught up in the frenzy. Libraries and bedrooms were no longer the only places where the Harry Potter narrative could be found. It had evolved into a cultural occasion. The excitement that had started with the books was heightened with each new movie's premiere, which became a significant media event. When Chamber of Secrets was published in 2002, viewers returned to watch the young actors in Prisoner of Azkaban develop into their parts. The darker, moodier tone that director Alonso Cuarón added 2 years later was a sign that the franchise would grow up with its audience. Because of this development, the series was able to attract new readers while retaining the same generation of kids who first read the novels in the late 1990s. Every movie evolved beyond simple amusement. It was an international discussion. Behind the scenes, rumors were examined by tabloids. Frame by frame, fans flocked to trailers in search of hints, and rumors about how closely the next installment would adhere to the books were rife on internet forums. The movies weren't taking the place of reading, they were strengthening them, providing fans with fresh perspectives to consider and discuss. Film-related merchandise also blew out. All of a sudden, kids could get action figures that looked like the actors they saw on screen, house robes, and movie-accurate wands. Pottermania was no longer cyclical and related solely to book release dates because to the synergy between the novels, movies, and merchandise. Rather, it remained consistent, being regenerated each time a new teaser trailer or movie poster was released. The young cast of the Harry Potter movies aged in real time with the characters, which was one of their most distinctive features. The travels of Harry, Hermione, and Ron were mirrored by fans as Daniel, Emma, and Rupert grew from kids to teens and then adults. The performers and the audience developed an uncommon bond as a result of this concurrent evolution. Many fans saw the actors as friends who grew up with them, not simply as entertainers. Alongside the publication of Deathly Hallows Part 2, children who started elementary school with Sorcerer's Stone graduated from high school. The franchise was extremely intimate because of the feeling of a shared coming of age. However, the adult actors gave the movies a fan base that made them more than just kid-friendly. Actors such as Maggie Smith, Ralph Fiennes, and Gary Oldman gave their parts Shakespearean weight, making sure that the audience's parents were as captivated as their kids. A balance between new, up-and-coming stars and seasoned veterans kept the franchise credible for 10 years. The actors themselves rose to fame on a global scale, and everyone recognized their faces. Every release resulted in bigger premieres, longer lineups at theaters, and higher global box office records. Numerous things were going on behind the scenes as viewers were enthralled with what they saw on screen. Decisions about casting, on-set dynamics, artistic choices, and even secret Easter eggs. Cast member secrets that viewers were never shown on TV. The world was enthralled with the Harry Potter books and movies, and viewers devoured every second of the narrative. From the last battle at Hogwarts to Harry's first visit to Diagon Alley, millions of people were engrossed in the enchantment on screen, yet innumerable details were taking place behind their backs. Unplanned situations, nuanced acting decisions, and backstage tales that weren't revealed until years after the actors started talking about them. These discoveries, which were frequently missed during the original craze, have subsequently grown to be priceless insights for moviegoers who are watching the films again with new eyes. The number of memorable scenes that weren't in the original script is among the cast's most startling admissions. At one point, Daniel Radcliffe acknowledged that Harry's peculiarities, like his propensity to put his glasses up on his nose, were more a result of need than of choice. Throughout filming, the glasses kept slipping, but he incorporated the movement into Harry's character rather than editing it. Many fans believe that this was a purposeful acting move that reflected Harry's timid shyness because it became so natural. Ron Weasley also received personal touches from Rupert Grint. The script did not always account for his fumbling characteristics and frequent uneasy giggles. Ron's humorous timing was largely spontaneous, which made the character likable and relatable outside of the book. Meanwhile, Emma Watson famously infused Hermione with her own snobbish enthusiasm. Her line deliveries were sharper and more genuine than anybody had expected because directors pushed her to embrace her innate brilliance and precociousness. Sometimes improvisation led to even small exchanges. According to Tom Felton, he purposefully rolled his eyes or sneered at Daniel and Wirt in the opening scenes to build tension, which the cameras captured brilliantly. The performers' chemistry wasn't merely predetermined. On set, it developed organically from friendly rivalries and sincere friendships. The fact that the wizarding world was not impervious to mistakes, accidents, and even heartbreak despite its cinematic beauty is one of the recurrent themes in these confessions. For example, the Hogwarts Express. For millions of admirers, it marked the beginning of an exciting journey. However, it was actually vandalized twice in real life. While the train was parked at a depot in 2003, pranksters were able to cover a portion of it with green and silver graffiti. A few years later, a different group used the emergency hammers to destroy several of its windows, necessitating expensive repairs and serving as a reminder that even movie icons may be damaged by young carelessness. In Goblet of Fire, Daniel Radcliffe admitted to had his own near-death experience while filming the underwater scene for the Tri-Wizard Tournament. He gave the scuba team the incorrect signal during one take, inadvertently signaling that he was out of air instead of just fine. Trainers hurried him up to the top. Even while the incident ended amicably, it demonstrated how dangerous and physically taxing some of the magical set pieces were for young players who seemed serene and peaceful on television. Not many behind-the-scenes tales ended in such a benign way. While filming a complicated stunt in 2009, Daniel's stunt double, David Holmes, suffered serious injuries. He was paralyzed from the chest down after a controlled explosion during a flying act went awry, sending him plummeting to the earth. David had been involved with the movie from the start, and his mishap served as a sobering reminder of the real risks involved in filming a fantasy movie. He has maintained a close relationship with Radcliffe and Tom Felton in spite of the tragedy, and they often express their admiration for his fortitude. In the meantime, a pyrotechnic misfire ignited a fire that consumed a portion of the castle copy during the last Hogwarts fight in Deathly Hallows. Over 100 crew members rushed to put out the fire. Additionally, tabloids eagerly announced that Hogwarts had burnt, despite the fact that no one was injured and the damage was limited to an area that was previously scheduled for reconstruction. Although it felt uncannily appropriate considering the devastation they were supposed to be staging, the team saw it as just another day in the unpredictable life of filmmaking. Even when instructed to deliver his lines with his back to the camera, comedian Rick Malal's portrayal as Peeves the Poltergeist was so outrageously amusing that the young actors found it impossible to maintain a straight face while he was on location. Production was disrupted by Malal's antics, which had the kids in stitches. His sequences were eventually removed, so Peeves was not included in the finished movies. Fans continued to conjecture, however, about what would have happened if his energy had been included. Unplanned moments can sometimes be the most unforgettable. Emma Watson was meant to give Hermione a gentle slap during the famous Prisoner of Azkaban altercation in which she lashes out at Draco. Instead, she punched Tom Felton in the face, possibly due to the scene's intensity. Later, Tom joked that her hook was very forceful and acknowledged that the sudden hit had shaken him. Later acknowledged having a unique friendship while filming. Fans were surprised when Emma revealed that she had a childhood crush on Tom. The most well-known behind-the-scenes disclosure was probably made by Alan Rickman, who played Severus Snape. J.K. Rowling herself trusted Alan with the facts early on, so he was aware of Snape's whole character arc, including his love for Lily Potter, long before the final novels were released, even though audiences argued for years over whether Snape was a hero or a villain. All of his nuanced acting decisions were influenced by this insider knowledge. Now fans look back on his scenes with fresh admiration, noticing how he interjected sympathetic or hesitant moments into his typically icy manner. A silent pause, a long look at Harry, and then a scathing remark. These subtleties were imperceptible at the time, but if you understand the whole tale, they become very apparent. As a young actor, Daniel Radcliffe subsequently acknowledged that he was never able to comprehend why Alan did certain scenes in the manner that he did. He didn't realize that Alan had been meticulously setting the foundation all along until he discovered the truth in later years. The performers have been open about the tremendous pressure to meet the expectations of their fans. Daniel Radcliffe frequently talked about how daunting it was to represent such a well-liked persona. He was cast at the age of 11. However, the world put Harry Potter on him, and he said that he occasionally questioned his ability to lead the series. Emma Watson said that she was under a lot of pressure to play the role of Haran, a figure who had already served as an inspiration to millions of young readers. She was always concerned about her suitability for the role. Her performance was even more genuine because, ironically, her perfectionism reflected her Mayan own. Rupert Grint acknowledged that he frequently thought his co-stars took center stage, and he was concerned that Ron was only viewed as the humorous sidekick. He didn't appreciate Ron's emotional depth with the trio until much later, particularly in the later movies. Richard Harris, the original Dumbledore, provided Daniel Radcliffe with comedy and advice on set prior to his death in 2002. Radcliffe has spoken highly of his tutelage under Harris. The relationship changed when Michael Gambon assumed the post, but he retained Richard's teachings. Even J.K. Rowling and some of the directors included small Easter eggs and forgotten aspects that helped the plot succeed. So the actors wasn't the only ones who revealed tiny, behind-the-scenes modifications. The author and directors were weaving a web of secrets, hints, and nuances from the very beginning. But the cast's behind-the-scenes confessions give the Harry Potter story heart. Audiences engrossed in the frenzy of book releases and blockbuster movies were unaware of many of these. However, insiders and even J.K. herself have discovered them years later. There was more to the Harry Potter universe than merely amusement. In order to reward keen eyes and rereads with secret depths, it was layered. J.K. Rowling's rigorous plotting helped her gain fame. She once acknowledged that, in order to make sure every aspect would line up, she spent years planning the series and creating timelines and family trees. Because of this degree of preparation, early literature's subtle clues didn't pay off until much later. The first volume of Sorcerer's Stone is among the most notable instances. In passing, Professor Quirrell remarks that Snape is well versed in counter curses. Although it appears to be a minor element at the moment, it becomes evident by Deathly Hallows that Snape's proficiency with defensive spells is essential to both his persona and Harry's survival. In a similar vein, Tom Riddle's diary in Chamber of Secrets presents the idea of Horcruxes long before the term is ever defined. The diary was viewed by readers at the time as just another cursed item. It wasn't until much later that J.K. revealed it to be the first Horcrux Harry meets, hinting at Voldemort's journey to immortality. Subtle hints about Harry himself were also left by her. His ability to speak parcel speech first alluded to the piece of Voldemort's soul that was inside of him. Rereading the books after the reveal reveals that the signs were there all along. Even though fans believed it was just a neat, magical talent, there was concealed meaning in even the smallest elements. The names of Harry's father and his comrades, the Marauders, appeared to be playful nicknames in Prisoner of Azkaban. Prongs, Padfoot, Wormtail, and Moony. In retrospect, however, it appears that these names were specifically picked to shadow their animus forms and Remus Lupin's Lanthropy. Readers who paid close attention were rewarded with beautiful Easter eggs. Although many fans didn't notice the references until later, she adored adding layers of meaning to her character names. For example, the name Remus Lupin is a twofold clue. The Latin word for wolf, lupus, is the source of the name Lupin, while Remus alludes to the Roman myth of twin brothers Romulus and Remus, who were fostered by a wolf. The fact that he was a werewolf was obvious. In a same vein, Sirius Black's name alludes to his animeous shape by referencing the dog star in the constellation Canis Major. The name Severus Snape conjures up a sense of threat with its piercing, hissing sound, and the Latin word Severus implies stern. In French, even Malfoy roughly means bad faith. These names were just a part of the world building for the average reader. But to the astute observer, they were pieces of a puzzle that revealed more nuanced aspects of the characters. Directors and set designers took great pleasure in incorporating obscure aspects into the wizarding realm when the movies came out. For example, Hogwarts moving pictures frequently feature obscure wizards and witches from J.K. Rowling's extensive literature. Characters that ardent readers are familiar with from the books, such as Elizabeth Burke or Barnabas the Barney, can be seen in the backdrop. Alonso Cuarón reportedly urged the set designers of Prisoner of Azkaban to include as many small elements as possible, since he knew that viewers would return and learn something new every time. The Marauders map's look is a perfect illustration. In addition to displaying footprints, it has Easter eggs, such as Peter Pettigrew's name appearing long before he is revealed as Scabbers or two background figures in a corner. The movie is also full of lighthearted references. All things considered, Harry Potter is still a tale that has triumphed in both the literary and film realms and keeps giving fans more when they return to read or watch it again. What are your thoughts? Have you previously discovered any secret hints? Tell us in the comments section below. Thank you for viewing. Click play on the video that is currently playing on your screen to see more thrilling videos. In order to receive notifications whenever a new video is released, remember to hit the bell, like, and subscribe.